Hello, gamers from around the world. This is Boxenberger, the video game enthusiast from Germany, and I would like to welcome you to today's episode of the world of gaming and, of course, co-streaming again with Wandering Dutch. So, how you doing, my man?
Oh, 2 moments before I do this. For some reason, it set my microphone to default. So, hey, now everybody can hear me on my side. Happy days. Yes, I'm doing well. How about you?
Thank you. I'm doing good. I got a little pink eye. Yeah, we were out of town for a week, and I, for some reason, got an eye infection. So I will be turning off my camera a lot today because I have to use these eye drops every 10 to 15 minutes, and nobody wants to see that. But other than that, I am doing great. So we missed our regular show on Thursday because we've been out of town, and since there are so many news this week and things we need to discuss, Dutch, we decided to do a rare Sunday podcast. So that's why you guys see us here today. But first, Dutch, I want to wish our community happy Easter weekend for those who celebrate. Do hope you guys have a few days with the family, and in a lot of countries we have a longer weekend. Yeah, you have tomorrow off as well, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Easter weekend. We've got a nice 4-day weekend. Thank God.
Yeah, we have a 4-day weekend too. So that is fantastic. So I hope everyone get some time with family, get some gaming time in, and yeah, just have an awesome Easter weekend, everyone. So Dutch, let us start with the actual show. Of course, as always, you guys can vote in the chat what gameplay we're gonna watch here today. So the poll is still open. Dragon's Dogma 2 is leading, and that brings us to the question: what have you guys been playing? Let us know in the chat what you have been playing, and Dutch, what kept you busy over the last week?
Yeah. I haven't really been playing much, to be fair. I haven't had the time. I've been obviously playing and reviewing Bulwark, and obviously that review went up the other day. Very good game, very interesting, nice and chilled out. City builder / resource management game, and yeah, that was very, very interesting.
Seen your review, which is up on YouTube. There are not that many reviews up, so if you guys are interested in what's that game like, definitely check it out. It's up on Wandering Dutch's channel.
Definitely. And outside of that, been playing a little bit more Halo Infinite. Jumped back on that a little bit, and I need to get back onto Rebirth and get that finished, and probably be jumping back on that tomorrow on my last day off.
Nice.
And do a nice big long stretch on that tomorrow. But other than that, that's pretty much all I've been playing. What about you?
Oh, yeah. So, before I talk about what I've been playing, let us know in the chat what you guys have been playing. We are always interested in hearing what the community is up to, so let us know. So yeah, Dutch, of course, I've been out of town for a week, so I had my Ellie, Asus Rock Ellie with me, and yeah, I actually wanted to start Dragon's Dogma so bad. I started that last Friday, played like the first 2 hours or so, and then on Saturday we went off, and it's the third-party problem again, yeah? So I bought Dragon's Dogma on Xbox, and that does not allow me to play the game on the Asus ROG Ally. So I actually went back and played a lot of Starfield on the Ally. Starfield runs so beautiful now on PC, and especially Asus ROG Ally, because it's got FSR 3 now, and you can play it at 60 FPS with medium settings, and yeah, so I played that all week, and then we came back yesterday, and I was like, okay, what do I play now? Do I continue with Dragon's Dogma? But I haven't finished Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So I jumped on Dragon's Dogma, and that game is just so good, and I know that I will be spending 100+ hours in that game. So I decided, okay, let's finish Final Fantasy VII first. And I literally finished the game like 10 minutes before the show started. I beat the final boss, watched the outro, and yeah, then we went online basically. So yeah, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was awesome. I really did enjoy it. For I don't know why, because the game improves basically upon everything that made the first remake so great. The combat system is improved. You know, the side quests are more interesting. The upgrading and party system has improved. So, but for some reason, it did not like grab me as much as the first one.
Yeah.
And I can't really tell you why, because it is a fantastic game. I would probably give it a 9 or something, maybe a little higher, 9.2, somewhere in that ballpark. Great story, great pacing. The mini games were a little bit annoying. They have these weird, quirky mini games that you have to play. They are not optional. The main story forces you to play those from time to time. That was basically my biggest complaint, because those were really annoying. But other than that, great combat, great story, beautiful visuals. Like that final boss fight is visually so impressive. The color choices and the way how they play with particle effects and volumetric fog during that final boss are beautiful. So yeah, it is definitely a great game. Just maybe not as, I don't know, as addictive as the first one. But still, definitely a recommendation, and worth playing. Absolutely loved it. Great game. And then, yeah, of course, I've started with Dragon's Dogma. I'm still super early, like maybe 3-4 hours into the game. I haven't even gotten to the main city yet. But it is fantastic. So far, it hits all the notes for me. You know, I'm a sucker for these high fantasy RPGs like Skyrim and Witcher and whatnot. And this is just, you know, it is not as... It doesn't hold your hand as much as a Skyrim or a Witcher does. But it is also not like Elden Ring, where you're just thrown into the world and have no idea what to do. That's definitely not it. But it's a great mixture in between, you know? It's not too much hand-holding. It gives you still a little bit direction where to go, but it's not like, oh, go to that marker on the map. The combat system is very different for the different vocations. You can switch them out, and I've tried... usually I play in these games like a sorcerer or mage or something, you know. This time I went with fighter, and it's so melee combat, and it's super fun. It's not a hack and slash, but it's also not like heavily based on dodging and parrying. It's like a great mixture in between. It's beautiful, great story so far. But again, I'm still super early, so yeah. But I'm really enjoying Dragon's Dogma, like a lot of people do. And I know the microtransactions have been like very controversial, honestly. So, but again, I'm still early, 4 hours or so into the game. I didn't even notice that they are in there. So
yeah,
I don't.
Yeah,
so
I've heard you've got to go out of your way to find them. To be fair.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, I don't get the outcry so far, but maybe they will be a little bit more invasive later in the game. I have no idea. We will see. I will let you know next week when I've played a lot more. So yeah, but that is basically what kept me busy. So Let us see what the community has been playing. So where do we start here? Luke is in the chat. Awesome. And I think he's back from his trip to America. So he has been playing Just Rebirth at the moment. What a gigantic game. It is gigantic. It is epic. It's beautiful. Yeah. Then we have Ghost Fixture, who has been replaying KOTOR 1 and 2, and a little bit of Ghost of Tsushima. And he started up Witcher 3 again. Oh, you can never go wrong with The Witcher 3. I've been tempted to install that on the Ellie again. Because that's basically the only device I have that I haven't done a full playthrough on. So Garim has been playing some old games, World of Warcraft and some Valorant. Oh, very good, man. Very good. So what else do we have here? James has been playing Rainbow Six, Vegas 2. He says it looks dated now, but it's still good for a blast through. And RSJ fan 05 has been playing Final Fantasy 14. Oh, nice. I know it's out now, but I have not that many, or I have not seen that many people play it. Have you?
I tried it for an hour when it was the trial period. Like the open beta type thing. Yeah, it's not my kind of Final Fantasy. It's not. Not in the slightest. It is a typical MMO where you've got like hundreds of fetch quests and things like that. So unless you've got time for a massive MMO where you've got to spend hours upon hours before you even start to scratch the surface of the story, then it's not going to be for you. I love Final Fantasies, don't get us wrong. I still own Final Fantasy 11 in its entirety on physical from when that first released. But I don't think I'll dive into 14.
Good. Sith Lord has been staring at Diablo 4. Yeah, and is still playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Diablo 4 is out in Game Pass now. And it is definitely a recommendation. It was my most played game last year. I actually double dipped, bought it on Xbox and PC. And I loved Diablo 4. I know it got a lot of hate for some reason, which I really don't understand, because the campaign was awesome. Really like the best Diablo campaign so far. The end game was, I think, good at the beginning. Yes, it's better now. It's like with every ongoing game, like, of course, the game, you can't compare Diablo 4 to Diablo 3. Diablo 3 has been improved over a decade. But there was already at launch lots of content in the end game. And so I definitely recommend it. And think next month they bring out Season 4. And they will do a lot of changes to the loot system. A lot of people are excited for that, me included. So I definitely recommend giving Diablo 4 a chance. It's great. It's a great game. But yeah. Did we miss someone? Have you someone in the chat?
Yes, Red Wolf is also, he says, Dragon's Dogma 2 has taken over completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. All right, Dutch.
I'll get it at some point when I get the chance. This month's going to be super busy with the indie showcase and things.
Yeah, so, I know. Oh, by the way, let us promote that a little. We have a trailer now for the community indie showcase and the date. So let people know. Let people know.
Yeah, so the trailer's up now on the channel. The date is the 27th of April. It's 7 p.m. UK, 2 p.m. Eastern. Of course, when I did the trailer, it was still DST or Daylight Savings Time. Now the clocks have changed, so the timing's a little bit different, but it's 7 p.m. UK, 2 p.m. Eastern when it's airing. So and that's on a Saturday.
Mm.
So yeah, we've got a few surprises and announcements and things which I'll talk about on the week of. But we'll keep those surprises until closer to the time. But yes, it is soon. We're going to be having more than 60 games again this year. Developers involved. We're going to get developer interviews afterwards as well for you to watch. So post-show content. Um, so yeah, it's going to be interesting. A few giveaways, some special guests.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. You have to send me the trailer. In the next show, we can let the trailer roll here for everyone to
Yes.
enjoy, because it is an awesome edited trailer. So, um, yeah, awesome. Looking forward to it, man. Can't wait. It's the I've said it last year and the year before. What you do with the indie community showcase is simply incredible. It's the best. Honestly, I'm not just saying that because we're friends. I truly mean it. It's the best indie showcase we have out there. No bullshit talk, just game after game, well edited together, always great looking games, giving smaller indies the chance to shine. And I always come out of this indie showcase with a list of at least 10, 15 games I need to check out. And what more can you expect from such a showcase?
Indeed.
So
Indeed.
I'm excited for it, man.
And there's going to be a bunch more this time around. We've got had even more developers reaching out to us as well after seeing even just like the Bulwark review, and they're like, "Oh, can you check my game out?" And
Yeah,
that. So there's a lot of solo dev projects on there this year, as well as like studio projects and things like that. So there's a lot to look forward to, and even teamed up with Sean Labrie this year to give it a nice graphics overhaul and
oh, nice.
fancy it up a bit more. It had an overhaul the year before, and it's getting an even fancier overhaul this year. So it's going to be good.
That's awesome. Cannot wait. Really looking forward to it. So, yeah, Dutch. Let us get into some actual topics before we get into the big one, which is obviously Xbox and the big Phil Spencer interview and all his expectations for Handheld and PC stores on console and Gen Z and the math of how game development works and everything. There was so much to discuss.
Yeah.
We need to talk about The Witcher 4, man. Because whenever there is Witcher news, I'm like super excited. And granted, it's probably not the biggest news of the week, but definitely something I briefly wanted to discuss with you guys. With you, Dutch, and of course our awesome community. So, by the way, if you enjoy the show, don't forget to hit the like button. I always get told I don't say it enough on the show, and people simply forget. So, if you do enjoy the show, hit the like button, and if you're new here, consider subscribing. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcast, give us a rating there. We would definitely appreciate it. But yeah, Dutch, The Witcher. CD Projekt Red had a little update, a business update, and they have reached their target staff size, about 2 for The Witcher 4, or the next mainline Witcher game. About 2/3 of the studio are working now on the next Witcher game. 403 people across multiple studios of them, and the game is basically done with pre-production, and they go into full production this summer. So just in a few months, and that obviously led to the discussion. What do we expect from the game? It's like the biggest dev team they've ever had on a single game, and it's leaving pre-production. So what do you expect when we will see that game? It's now basically going into full development. So building out the world, creating all the assets, recording all the lines, and so on. What do you expect, man?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see them because obviously the major thing here for the next Witcher and going forward is that it's transitioned over from the Red Engine to Unreal Engine
Unreal
5.
Engine, yeah.
So that's going to be the biggest one. I'm very intrigued to see how that goes and how it translates all of the
Yeah.
systems and things over to that engine. And I hope, because obviously the beginning of this gen hasn't seen the greatest implementation of Unreal Engine 5.
Mm.
There's been more misses than there have been hits when it comes to performance
Yeah.
and visuals. We've seen kind of a lot of games, in order to get performance modes, have been sub 1080, which is ridiculous in this day and age. So I hope, I truly hope that they're able to really work with Epic in order to make sure that the game itself is both visually extremely pretty, but also performance-wise hits the performance metrics that we expect of a modern title as well. Um, we obviously know we've had The Witcher 3 out for quite some time now. It's had its updates and its upgrades. So
Yeah.
we've got the enhancements now to 4K with and on PC, I think, with ray tracing and things like that. So um, it's had its updates there. So yeah, I don't know what to expect from it yet because I don't know what route they're going to take and who they're going to have as lead character. We can kind of semi assume it might be Siri as lead character, but it could be also be
Mm.
another. It could be a new male Witcher from a different angle. We don't know.
See, I'm not sure if it's gonna be Siri because the way they have been talking about the game is basically they're starting a new trilogy. And while I fully expect to have Ciri and Geralt to make a cameo in the game, I'm not sure if they will put one of the already known characters as one of the main characters. Um, I've always said what I would love them to do is to, there are these different Witcher schools in the lore,
Well, the
and
logo of this one, the cat, isn't it?
sorry,
Isn't the new logo for Witcher 4 like the cat? The last
yeah,
one was the
it's
wolf.
not. It's. I don't think it's the wolf. The cat. I think it's the wolf. But see, these different schools would allow you to basically, make your own character in the game because that's something we haven't had in a Witcher game. We have always played as Geralt. We couldn't we could customize his looks a little. We give him a hairdress or a new beard, but overall we couldn't customize our character. And I would love to see a Witcher game where we could do that. And with the different schools in there, you could do it. You could like even more focus on a melee a fighter or Witcher or more like a Witcher that is specializing more in the science. I know you could do that with Geralt too, but if you can create your own character, you can even more customize that. And I would love to see that, honestly. So yeah, we shall see. We shall see. What do you think about the timeline?
I don't want them to rush it as much as they've set their own timelines on
Yeah,
when new Witchers will be out. I don't want them to rush it because the last thing we want is a game coming out and it's got severe
absolutely.
technical issues. And
Especially
it's
them.
not so much the content of the game because I fully
Yeah,
believe they'll be able to easily get the content of the game down, no problem. But it's more the technical side of things.
I agree. Especially after Cyberpunk,
Yeah,
if they have like a buggy launch again, that would be. I don't think that they will do that again. I think if one studio learned the lesson, it's
yeah,
CD
definitely that.
Projekt Red. So yeah, I also think even though a lot of people speculate, usually, and they are right. Usually, if a game goes into full production, it isn't like 5 years out. Full production. Todd Howard talked about this, like full production for one of their big RPGs is a year, 1.5 years. What it takes you after you have basically prototyped everything, after you have finished off pre-production, simply building the game out, is a fairly quick process. But then again, like you said, they are going for Unreal 5 this time. And while we still wait for, like, one super AAA major studio Unreal 5 title, the Unreal 5 games we have seen so far all suffered more or less from performance issues. I think the only one that ran well at launch was RoboCop. It's at least the only one I can think of. If you have another example, drop it in the chat. But yeah, if you look at games like Immortals of Avium, which was backed by EA, but still isn't like a... Would you consider that a AAA game? Probably not. You know what I mean? So what AAA game did we get from a well-established studio that uses Unreal 5 did we get? So, and Unreal 5 also makes a lot of progress. Yeah, we talked about it last week with the state of Unreal from GDC. A lot of improvements there. So yeah, and I bet that Epic is working with CD Projekt Red together on this, because it's also for Epic a showcase title, because usually we don't get that many open world action RPGs running in Unreal, there's like, I can only think of one true open world game, and that is Days Gone. That was still on Unreal 4. Maybe I'm missing one, but Unreal is not really known for massive
big
open world RPGs, and having a Witcher as one of a showcase titles for your engine definitely is something. So I would assume that Epic takes care of CD Projekt Red. And
I think the closest they've got to a semi-open world was Gears 5.
Yeah, Mass Effect maybe. That was Unreal. At least the first trilogy, but granted that's very old games now.
On Unreal 4, I think that was probably the largest semi-open world.
That was Unreal 3, bro.
No,
Days Gone.
Gears 5. Gears 5.
Yeah. Gears 5, semi-open world. Days Gone, the only one true open world. So, yeah. We shall see, man, where The Witcher goes from here. Shout out to Sith Lord, who sends in a channel member chat for being a channel member for 20 months now. Thank you so much for the continued support. He says, you can rely on death taxes, and Boxy say Witcher or Diablo 4.
Yep.
Ha! I don't get the thing with the death taxes, but if you had made me choose in between Witcher and Diablo 4, obviously The Witcher. The Witcher is one of the best games ever made. So, yeah.
Boxy's played The Witcher more than he's had hot meals.
Probably. Like, I've done 5.5 complete playthroughs, including all DLC, doing all the quests and everything. So, I love The Witcher 3. That's a lot of time. It's probably 500 hours plus.
And the rest.
Yeah.
But at that point, though, you know where all the quests are, you know where all the things are, you know where to search.
That is true.
Yeah.
And you skip after the third playthrough, you skip a lot faster through the conversations, Yeah. Like, yeah. So, yeah, but again, I'm a sucker for those kind of games. I probably have a similar playtime in Skyrim. I love these high fantasy RPGs. That's why I'm so excited about Dragon's Dogma right now. It just hits all the notes for me. It's yeah. All right. The Witcher 4. By the way, since we are on the subject, the Elder Scrolls of high fantasy RPGs. The Elder Scrolls had celebrated its 30th anniversary this week. It absolutely did, and we got a little tease from Bethesda regarding Elder Scrolls 6. They said, we are playing early builds, and it has us filled with the same joy, excitement, and promise of adventure. And I've seen a lot of people already, it's already playable, and yeah, of course, when you're prototyping the game, you have playable builds. You have small segments that you can play to see what kind of mechanics work, what doesn't work, and so on. It really doesn't mean that the game is already in a playable state in the way we think about a playable state. I wouldn't keep my hopes up that we see this game anytime soon. I mean, just last year, Phil Spencer said during the FTC trial that this is when he was asked whether it's going to be exclusive, he said, like, yeah, a game that is 5+ years out. We don't have or did not have made any decisions yet, so this is probably not gonna be a this gen game. It's gonna be a next gen game, even if next gen starts in 28 and not like the rumors say in 26. Even then, I don't think that it's gonna be a this gen game. Maybe cross gen, but not coming out during this gen. But anyway, 30 years of Elder Scrolls make me think. I started with Daggerfall. I never played the first Elder Scrolls. I started with Elder Scrolls 2, Daggerfall, and ever since I've been a huge fan. Or what about you, man?
I think, I'm nowhere near as far back as you. I think the first Elder Scrolls I played was Oblivion. And at that point, I didn't really like Oblivion because of the weapon degradation. And then they ditched the weapon degradation on Skyrim, and that's when I really got into it. So Skyrim was my first love of Elder Scrolls, and I'm glad they ditched the weapon degradation.
Okay.
As much as Oblivion might have been great, I did not like that. And we've spoke about this with Zelda's. Weapon degradation has no place in it. If people want it, you should have a toggle in the menu, weapon degradation on or off.
Off. Yeah, it's one of those gameplay mechanics where to this day I don't know why any developer thinks this is fun in a game. There's no example of a game.
I can understand why they would want to do it for like realism.
Yeah.
But outside of that, in terms of raw playability and fun in a game, weapon degradation is not fun. I can understand if someone wants a realistic kind of game, in which case maybe he's put that option to have weapon degradation in, but don't force it. Have the default as weapon degradation off.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. If someone in the chat can think of a game where weapon degradation was actually fun, let us know. Maybe we are missing one. But I can't think of a single game where I thought like, oh, that's cool. That's a good mechanic, you know? So, yeah. My love, by the way, for Elder Scrolls began with, I played Daggerfall. But the game that made me really, really fell in love with the Elder Scrolls was Morrowind. That was just mind-blowing. And it is actually the game that made me like an Xbox gamer first. Because at the time I was playing, I had the consoles, yes, but I was playing a lot on PC. But I still went to university, I didn't have much money, you know, and wasn't able to upgrade all the time and do the PC stuff, you know. And I lived in a shared apartment at the time, and my roommate, he actually got the OG Xbox, and of course we played a lot of Halo on that. And then when Morrowind came out, I was like, oh, awesome, my PC is not able to run it anymore, I don't have money to upgrade it, and now I can play a game that is like was actually built for PC on a console and get like the same great experience. And that's really what made me an Xbox first gamer. So, okay, but Morrowind and Elder Scrolls, not the biggest topic of the week. I could fill up entire podcasts though about that. Maybe we should do that at some time. Dedicated podcasts to certain game franchises, like an entire podcast about
RPG.
like entire podcast about the Elder Scrolls series, or entire podcast about Mass Effect, or you know what I mean. Could think about that. We could think about that.
We could do one-offs where we get people involved and we'll have big discussions on franchises.
Oh yeah.
Like a big discussion on Elder Scrolls, big discussion on the Witcher series, big discussion on Fallout, and
Halo and Gears.
And you name it.
We should do that maybe. Let us talk offline about this idea. Let us get to the big topic. Xbox. They've been making moves lately. Obviously, a couple of weeks ago, we learned about them bringing a couple of first-party games or exclusive games to PlayStation. The community didn't take it too well. Let me put it this way. And ever since, Xbox, I don't know what it is, but I mean, if we look at this year, in 2 months or 1.5 months, we will get a Hellblade 2. We will play Avowed this year, and Indiana Jones and Stalker. And it's actually exciting to be an Xbox gamer right now. But for some reason, there is this negativity surrounding the brand. And to some degree, I actually understand it. But yeah, they're making weird moves. And even though some moves sound exciting, like the Handheld, or maybe Steam or Epic or whatnot on consoles, still there's some negativity around Xbox at the moment. And we will talk about all those things. So we will talk about now, of course, about the big Phil Spencer interview and a couple of things he said, because there were a lot of different things, and Polygon actually broke it down into multiple articles dedicated to certain topics: handheld, third-party or PC stores on console, about Gen Z and growth of the industry and how much game development costs right now. And there's a lot in there. And we will, of course, get to the leaked all-digital Xbox and about a report from GameIndustry.biz where they put the rumor out there, that some bigger third-party publishers might skip the platform and all that stuff. We will get to that. And I want to dedicate a segment here today also about what's happening in the Xbox community, because it is sometimes weird these days out there. So, Dutch, with what do you want to start? Let's talk about the Handheld.
Yes, let's talk about the Handheld, because me and you have been speaking about the Handheld since last year. But all of a sudden, Boxy, it's big news.
It's big news.
Every person's an insider.
It's trending on Twitter.
About it since since Gamescom last year.
Yeah, let people know why that is, man.
Yeah, so we had a one-on-one conversation with the Xbox hardware team. At the time, it wasn't just about Handheld. That was actually later on in the conversation, which we spoke about what was wrong with the hardware currently, what needed improvements in terms of both the controllers as well as what the physical hardware we have, so the Series X and S. So we went through all of that, and later on they were talking about improvements to the consoles going forwards, as well as other things. So then they started quizzing us about handhelds. What do we like about the handheld options that are available now? What don't we like about the handheld options available now? What would we like to see in a handheld? What things are important in a handheld? What pricing range do we think is suitable for a handheld? What features do we want to see or are most important to have in a handheld? So we went into fine detail with the hardware team.
Yeah.
what kind of system, operating system, everything you can imagine. We went into fine detail with the hardware team at Gamescom about what we want to see in a handheld. So we spoke about that in detail. We spoke about how we thought it was important that the handheld was native for a start. One of the options that we wanted was, of course, being native, being able to play your games no matter where you had them. So, of course, as we do now, when you've got Play Anywhere, you need that when it's on the move. So you'll be able to install your games and play them on the move on a handheld system. We spoke about the screen types. We spoke about the price points and what they considered high or low in comparison to the options available out there at the moment, such as the Steam Deck or the ROG Ally, etc. So we touched on those. There wasn't much that we didn't touch on when it came to the handheld in terms of audio quality as well. I think you mentioned was the ROG Ally, and you said the audio quality of the ROG Ally was like superior to all the other models, and you thought that it was truly a really good experience there. Then we spoke about the screen types. Personally, for me, I think an OLED panel would be great, although expensive, and opposed to just your LCD screens that you tend to find in the basic switches, which are okay, but it doesn't really truly represent the colors very well. So there was a lot of things we spoke about that they took away. Price point wise, we mentioned I said somewhere in the region of 500, 600 maybe. And they were saying, okay, well, we've done research to say higher.
Pricing is difficult with such a handheld because you don't want it too cheap because you want quality hardware. You don't want it too expensive.
And mainly as well about the battery issue with handhelds.
Yes,
and when
exactly.
You start to put higher quality hardware in there and make it more powerful, then you've got a really big battery issue, which we've seen in the likes of Steam Deck and you've seen in the ROG Ally. And the battery's okay, but you could never do long stint gaming on one of those. You
not without a power bank. But if you've got a good power bank accompanying you, it's actually fine. It is interesting because the demand for handhelds is obviously out there. The Steam Deck has been massively successful. There are lots of Windows based handhelds out there now, the ROG Ally, the Lenovo, and so on. And so far they have been also fairly successful. But we spoke about the third-party problem a lot. Especially I did, as an owner of the ROG Ally. The third-party problem is what I like to call the problem of where do you buy your third-party games? Because obviously with the games in Game Pass, basically the first-party titles and everything else that comes to Game Pass, you have Play Anywhere. You can boot up Starfield on the console and pick up your save file on PC. And those Lenovos and ROG Allies are Windows-based devices, so you just pick it up and continue. Just like it's a seamless experience as you want it to be. But as soon as we talk about third-party games, and let's be frank here, most games we play on the console are third-party games. At least for me, that's the case. So you end up having the problem where to buy them. Do you buy them on Steam so you can play it on your handheld, or do you buy it on Xbox console so you can play it on console? Of course, the PC gamers don't have that issue. They just play on PC anyway. But there are lots of people that do not want to be PC gamers mainly. Me included. But that's a me thing, you know. It's like I sit in front of the PC all day at work. When I come home and want to play games, I want to just relax on the couch, and that's why I prefer console gaming. And I always have that problem. Where do I buy my third-party games? Because I love my handheld. I love the ROG Ally. I love to play games in bed and when I'm traveling. And unfortunately, I travel fairly a lot for work reasons, and so I like the handheld experience, but where do I buy my third-party games? And so for Xbox, And Phil Spencer specifically mentioned that also in the interview. He said he has his list of things they should do, and he talked about this problem specifically. We've been talking about this on this podcast for months, but it sounded to me like he knows about it. And would it be, assuming that they will make a handheld, and we will get to that in a second, but would it be a good idea to release another Windows-based handheld? Since there are already so many options out there, the most successful obviously being the Steam Deck, which isn't Windows-based. But since PC gaming basically is Steam, let's be real, nobody plays on Epic, let alone the Windows Store. So, and the Ally and Lenovo, they actually run Windows. They are basically a laptop in a different form factor. It's literally Windows when you boot it up. So, would you do like another competitor to those? Especially thinking about it, that Microsoft already has a lot of partnerships going on with Lenovo and with Asus and so on. Do you want to scare that off, or do you want to make something unique on the market? Because no other PlayStation doesn't have that. They don't have a native handheld that runs their console OS. They have the PS Portable, which is a streaming device. Yeah, but that's not what people want. You want a native handheld that runs the Xbox OS. So all your games, also the third-party games that you buy, carry over to that device. With that, you would make...
And one thing I would like to say as well is that the difference between what would be a PlayStation's last attempt, where they created a whole new media type for their games on PSP and built a whole different types of games and specifically built for the PSP. This would be the opposite. It would be a digital-only platform, so you download your games onto it. You don't have to worry about media, as it were, physical media, etc. Yeah. As long as you're able to download those games and install those games, that's essentially all they need to do, is worry about the space on there. So make sure that you get a 512 or a 1 terabit version of it, and just make sure that, of course, it's able to run the games natively.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to be the biggest options, essentially, as long as it's Series S quality games on there.
Yeah, I agree. In the interview, Phil definitely sounded like they are working on one. And like you said, after our talk with the Xbox hardware team at Gamescom last year, we were like going out of this interview because they invited us to this meeting for 30 minutes because they wanted to talk to us about what do we like about the Series X and Series S and the controllers that we currently have. And I actually don't remember how we came to the point. I think I casually mentioned that I just got the Asus ROG Ally, and then they were like, and that I played a lot on the Steam Deck as well, and then they canceled their adjacent meeting, talked to us for another 30 minutes just about handhelds, and we were pretty sure that they're working on one, because the way how they asked us these questions, and the way how they responded to certain things, we don't want to get them into too much trouble, so we leave a couple of details maybe out of this conversation, because I think they told us a couple of things they probably shouldn't have. But
they've clearly done their research before they started speaking to us and asking these questions.
Exactly, yeah. But at the end of the day, we were pretty sure, okay, they're working on one. We had no idea, obviously, on what timeline that is, and still we don't. We have no idea, but we were pretty sure that they are working on one, and that was in August last year. So, which isn't too surprising. I mean, Jess Corden from Windows Central, shout out to him. He also mentioned, they have prototypes out there all the time. They are prototyping all the time different things, and obviously that's what a hardware team does. But yeah, now, especially after this week's interview, I think everyone knows that they are really looking into that. So Dutch, Phil also mentioned talked a lot about this third-party problem and how to get access to actually all of your games. And to me, obviously, that sounded like they are really considering making it with the Xbox OS. And again, I think it would be the only wise thing. They would put out like the quadrillionth Windows-based handheld. Why would you invest in that if you could also get like a good Lenovo or an Asus or even the Steam Deck? So with it running the Xbox OS, they would have a differentiation on the market. So, but Phil also talked about this in a way where it's obvious that this is something they want to do for multiple reasons, and one is of course extending their customer base. Do you think a handheld would be something to lure people in, new gamers in, that are currently not Xbox customers?
Yeah, absolutely. You've got that huge Switch market there. And they play their games native. They don't play obviously there's a few big games that are cloud only on Switch, but ultimately they play their games native.
That's not a thing. Yeah.
But that's just because they're down to the power of the hardware. But ultimately there's a massive market there. There's a massive. You've got to think, and again he touched on it, and people got really nervy about it, the whole Gen Z thing. But ultimately, when you look at the market that's playing a lot of these games now, it's the younger generation. You're talking about kids that play on tablets and phones and Switches and the ROG Ally or the Steam Deck and things like that. They're becoming more and more prevalent because kids can just sit there instead of doing like going to a PC, or they don't take up the TV, so they sit there and game on the tablet all day. Ultimately, those are the target audiences they want to try and hit as well. And when they see these out in the wild, they tell the parents, "Oh, I want one of these Xbox handheld things." Then that's ultimately the demographic they're going to go for, as well as us geeks who just want to have one to go and lie in bed.
Absolutely, I would like. This would be for me, but I'm already very invested in the Xbox ecosystem, and the other console ecosystems anyway. So they wouldn't gain a new customer with me. For me, it would be like a fan service. The question really is, would you? Because that, and we will get to growth in the console space in a second. But to me, I feel like when you look at all the most successful consoles ever, and PlayStation just made sure that everyone knows that the PS2 is like the most successful console ever, but a lot of people bought the PS2 back in the days, and people forget that, not just for gaming, because it was the cheapest DVD player on the market. When it came out. And obviously it was a great console and a great system, no doubt. But this was something, the Switch did something new and is on track to becoming the most successful console ever. The Wii did something new, something different. So if you think about these super successful consoles, it's always about doing something different, giving you something unique. And outside of the Switch, we don't have that. And the Switch really is basically a Nintendo machine, meaning most third-party games skip the platform. You will not be able to play a Diablo and a Dragon's Dogma and I don't know. There's only a handful. It's unfair. There are a few of, obviously. There's The Witcher on there and Skyrim, but you know what I mean. The Switch is really not a system for third parties. The main third-party publishers bring their games to Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. And in that space, you don't have that handheld. Steam has been very successful with it. Now, basically, they created a console-like experience, and I know you can boot up Windows and hack and play Game Pass games, but it's basically nobody does that. You know, it's like less than 1% of Steam Deck users actually crack the system, boot up in Linux, and crack the system to boot up Game Pass. Nobody does that. It's a Steam console. It's a Steam console. That's what the Steam Deck is, and they have been successful with that. There is obviously a demand for that portable gaming. Now, if you can mix that with the regular console experience, I think this could actually be even more successful than the Series S has been, because it offers you something that you do not get at the competitor thing. And yes, you can argue you get it on PC with the Steam Deck, but console and PC have been both growing for decades now in parallel, because some people are PC gamers, some people are console gamers. There's a market for both. And in the console space, we don't have the handheld. There's no handheld. Again, I'm leaving out the Switch. But if you want to play the next Assassin's Creed game, you can't do that on the Switch. Yeah, that's why I'm leaving that out again. So the console space for third-party games is PlayStation and Xbox, and you don't have an handheld option. And so, yeah, it is something that I see as a potential success out there. I know I would get one, obviously, but yeah. So the big question now is that probably a lot of people don't ask themselves now if they make one. The question is more, when do they make one? There are two theories out there. Mostly two theories. There's a lot of other bullshit out there as well, but you know what I mean. The one is they launch it with the next gen. So basically, the Series S is the Xbox handheld, and there will be a standard main console, the successor to the Series X. That's the one option. And the others say, okay, this is actually the mid-gen refresh now that we are getting. You know, either this or next year, we will see that handheld being the mid-gen upgrade or refresh thing. So what do you think? What is the timeline on this?
I think I think it would be more likely. I think it'd be more likely being more of a next gen thing. As much as we'd love to see a handheld more recently, I think it'd be more likely the handheld replace the S and become this dockable Series S essentially. That is also a handheld. Whereas then you've got the physical stay-at-home Series X. That's what I think is going to be the timeline. So I think the next gen will launch with it. But seeing that, we've also kind of seen for a while now that Xbox are potentially planning to launch the next generation earlier than anticipated. So I could see an announcement about it soon, talking about it. But yeah, I think it's more likely to be the second. I think it's more likely to be the Series S is replaced by the handheld dockable Series S.
Yeah, I think so. I think that this is the more likely scenario for multiple reasons. There's this practical thing that Xbox already has two SKUs out there. Bringing the handheld would be the third SKU that developers have to optimize for. And then how do you get developers to do that and support that properly? We know for a fact that, and I'm not shitting on the Series S. I still think it's probably it was probably a good idea for them to do it. It is definitely a good idea for customers to have an entry point and a cheap entry point. However, there's also no denying that Xbox already has a relatively low install base in terms of consoles, and then you have two SKUs, and especially less powerful takes up a lot of time to optimize. We've seen that with Baldur's Gate last year, for instance, where the game, because of that, came like half a year later, or 5 months later, to Xbox. And if you add the handheld now, you may have a third SKU. So I think that alone is probably a reason why you would launch it with the next gen. Now, and again, it would make like a great differentiation for next gen, because a lot of APUs are now developed for particularly those kind of devices, those handheld devices. AMD has the Z1 Extreme out there, which is in the Lenovo and the Asus ROG Ally, and so on. And they run on a different architecture. They are already RDNA 3 chips. They are Zen 4 chips, CPUs. It's a different architecture, and so bringing that now midterm, I don't think that's likely. But then on the other hand, the demand for handhelds is high right now. Steam Deck is massively successful. The others also, not to the same degree as the Steam Deck, but the Lenovo's are successful. The Ally is successful. If you wait another 3 years or so to bring those kind of devices, maybe the market is already saturated. People have moved on PC to those kind of devices. It's hard to tell when is the right point. If you would have one this holiday, which is, I think, highly unlikely, but just for the sake of argument, this would be a perfect time, It would be disruptive in the console space. It would be, the demand right now is high for those devices, and you would not give your competitor the heads up to react to that. That is also something you have to consider when running a business. If they, like you said, they have more or less announced it with these interviews. We like the idea and we wanted to do this and that. Now, PlayStation is also listening to those kind of things. And if you wait another 3 years, you give your competitor time to react. So there's an argument to be made for both scenarios, starting with next gen or bringing it for this gen. I really don't know what they will do. It's, I don't know. What do you think? Anything to add?
Yeah. I understand it obviously would be disruptive. I think the thing with handhelds though is they've always been highly popular. Nintendo really started the proper trend off with the original Game Boy, then the Game Boy Color, the Game Boy Advance. And each one of those has sold hundreds of millions of units each time. That's the market that you're trying to crack into, ultimately, and that's the one that remains popular. The on-the-go crowd, the kids. So I think although the high-scale handhelds is very much popular right now, such as the Steam Deck and the Ally, etc., I think that's also not specifically the market they're targeting. They're not targeting the PC market. They're targeting the console market, the younger generation gamer. So I think is in one way, yes, it would be great for them to release it sooner rather than later to try and take advantage of the ROG Ally and the Steam Deck crowd. But I think also on the flip side, it's also kind of irrelevant because the Switch is ultimately very popular still. It's one of the most popular and highest selling consoles ever.
Absolutely.
And then you've got the launch of the Switch 2 in the coming years, which will reignite the handheld thing again. So that's the kind of the ones you'll be cracking up against, because when people will be weighing up the Switch 2 versus an Xbox handheld and the quality of games that you're going to get both graphically and performance-wise on the Xbox handheld versus what Nintendo put out, depending on how high quality systems they present, is ultimately going to be the way up choice for those kids. Do I get the Nintendo, which can play Mario and things like that? Or do I get the Xbox and now I can play Halo on the go and Gears on the go and Call of Duty on the go? And those ultimately are going to be the kids that you're trying to win over. That's the demographic. We're going to be buying technology regardless.
yeah, but we are really the hardcore gaming base, and I think again this is the question. Really is how can you lure in new customers? And yes, the younger generation is definitely one thing to look at. And we'll talk about Gen Z and Phil's statement on that in a second. But I also think like our demographic has a lot of potential for growth. And having this hybrid console that you can plug in the TV and take with you on the go, it also has a lot of potential for those. And it has a lot of potential to actually bring over the PlayStation customers. Because as much as Phil talks about the industry as a whole not growing, there's still plenty of room for Xbox to grow in the console space that exists now. And yes, you have to throw away this kumbaya mentality that they have been or have had for a while. But there is growth in bringing customers over from PlayStation. And it is getting more challenging by the day because, and Phil also talked about that in other interviews last year, like when he talked about the worst generation to lose was the PS4 generation because that was the generation where everyone started to build up their digital libraries. But so if you want to bring customers over, you have to offer something unique, something you cannot experience over there. And I could see a world where a lot of people say, hey, I can still have my PlayStation, but I have this hybrid console that I can plug into my TV and I can take on the go and I can play the games then. And it is a unique offering. And there is a demand for handhelds, obviously. And it's also a demand in the PlayStation community. The PS Portal, people that have it actually enjoy it. It has its limitations because it only streams in your local network. But again, there's a demand for that. And if this offers native gaming, no internet connection required all the time, you can take it on the go, you can play it at home, you can bring customers over. So there is growth in that. We shall see. I'm really not sure. Actually, of course, being a selfish gamer, I would love to have that device this holiday. Absolutely, and would buy it in a heartbeat and sell my alley probably for it because it would solve my third-party problem that I have with the Windows-based handhelds. But yeah, I don't think that this is the case. I think we will get something different this holiday season. And maybe let's use that as a segue because a couple of images have leaked from a white Xbox console. And we know that there's hardware coming this holiday season. In the business update that we got in February from Xbox, Sarah mentioned that yes, we are getting new hardware this holiday. Everyone already kind of knew about it because last year they basically leaked their entire roadmap, and we had this cylindrical Alexa-shaped Xbox Series X that basically is a slim, a little bit better Wi-Fi, a little bit better Bluetooth, new controller, which was exciting, and of course a bigger hard drive. But it's not a mid-gen refresh. It's basically a slim, and we all assumed that this is going to happen. Now these images of the white Xbox leaked, that is also all digital. Looks like a Series X, just without a disk drive and in white. What do you think we will actually get? Because I I have my thoughts on this. I want to hear yours
Yeah, it
first.
won't be that leaked image. I think that actual leaked image is outdated. I
Yeah.
don't think that's the actual image of it. I think that's just something that's being dug up from a long time ago. Because even Phil Spencer said, "Listen, the plans that we had then have changed. These are old plans, and they've changed, and things have evolved, and we've changed what avenue we're going down, and things like that. So we'll get a refresh. I don't think it'll be a white discless Series X. I think we'll probably get an all digital, but I don't think it'll look like that. Every time we see a leaked one, it's always the white. I'm sure it's pretty much similar to the previous leaked images we had of it as well. So no, I don't. I assume this year we'll probably just get a revision, like a mid-gen refresh, and with some minor upgrades. I don't even think. I'm not even sure if they'll do a Pro model series console this time around.
No, I think they
Still,
pretty much
still
already
weighing that
said
up.
that this is not going to happen. Phil Spencer
Yeah,
mentioned that last year during Gamescom. What's the point in doing one this gen? There's really no point in that. And let's be real, we would have learned of that in this massive FTC league if they had one in the plans. And yes, plans change all the time. That's the case, but they do not suddenly dig up a pro or enhanced model of proper mid-gen refresh out of the blue and release it the year after. That's simply not going to happen. Yeah, so I don't think we will get a mid-gen refresh from Xbox this time.
yeah, Sib. I agree.
But yeah, the about the leaked white images, I have two issues with that. I don't think it's going to happen. This white all digital console, because first, the leaks about the actual Series X Slim, the cylindrical one, whether it will look like that or not, yeah, that might change. Especially after the adorably looking comments and everything. This is what you do halfway through. You release a Slim, and you don't release like a couple of months before that another version of your console, the all digital. There's really no point in doing an all digital white Series X in the same form factor than the Series X in summer, and then this holiday season release a slim model. That's not gonna happen.
Yeah,
And second of all, this was obviously printed by a 3D printer, and it is probably just a, you know,
the
some
mock-up.
images from mock-ups and stuff. People read too much into those kind of leaks. So yeah, I think that it would make sense for them to release at least a Slim this holiday season, price it accordingly, because they are going up against the PS5 Pro, which is probably coming this holiday season. Yeah, it's all but confirmed, and have an exciting new controller along with it. That plan would make sense to me. A white Series X all digital console in summer just doesn't make sense to me. So, yeah.
Yeah,
But maybe they even ditched that Slim. Just bring out the new controller and then actually go for the plan to focus properly on a next gen console in 26. But I would also assume, because I've seen a lot of people say, yeah, well, in the June showcase we will get the reveal of the next gen. You're not gonna announce a next gen 2 years in advance. And I know that they basically announced the Series X a year in advance at the Game Awards 2019 in December, and then they released it the Series X in November 2020. So 11 months in advance. That would still mean that we would not see it like December 25. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's not gonna happen. So whatever hardware they're going to announce this June in the showcase is the hardware that will come out this holiday season. And maybe they surprise us completely with that handheld. Yeah. I could also see if the handheld isn't a holiday release this year, but somewhere next year that they announce it, because it would already hype up your platform. It would give people a reason to invest already into the Xbox ecosystem. Knowing that they will get a handheld next year where they can play and get all their games that they buy now. That would make sense, but yeah, we're not gonna get an announcement of next gen this year. It's not gonna happen. Yeah. But yeah, Dutch. A lot of other things have been said by Phil Spencer in this interview, and one of the big
Yeah.
things is, of course, and I've seen a lot of people talk about that, and it is a super interesting topic, that Phil Spencer kind of wants other digital storefronts, and he specifically mentioned Epic and itch.io on Xbox.
Yeah.
A lot of people, and I did it also in the thumbnail of this podcast, I put in the Steam logo because nobody uses Epic or itch.io. PC gaming is basically Steam. But Phil Spencer didn't mention Steam. He mentioned specifically Epic and itch.io to bring those PC storefronts to console. He said nobody would blink twice about Windows having multiple storefronts. Basically saying, hey, we're a Windows company. It's nothing new for us to do something like that. Why wouldn't you do that on a console and basically solve the third-party problem that way? Yeah, that's, of course, also something. What do you think about this? Is this going to happen? I mean, if Phil talks about it in an interview with Polygon like that, he doesn't say that willy-nilly, because Microsoft and Phil know whatever he says will make headlines the next day. So,
Yeah.
what do you think about this? Is this a good idea? Is this something we will see rather soon? What do you make of this, man?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great idea. We'd all love to have our PC storefronts on our console, but I think the implementation of it is easier said than done. If you go for a native handheld console, for instance, then that means that the PC storefronts would have to be available on not only the handheld, but on the physical version as well, the full-on console. They're mentioning just allowing, now you've got keyboard and mouse support for cloud games.
Yeah.
So I think they go full tilt into keyboard and mouse support for Xbox in general, as opposed to just the odd title. And that would solve part of the PC gaming issue. But on the other side, then the marketplace is that vast on PC, with Epic and Steam and itch.io, etc. There will be quite a few hurdles to get around. Now, for indie developers, it would be a fantastic thing, because that means that they would only have to port the game for Steam or Epic, wherever they port that game for. And then if that game is automatically available on Xbox consoles because of that, then they wouldn't have to worry about it. But then that would mean that the Xbox user would have to have multiple logins. So you'd have to have a Steam ID or an Epic ID or an itch ID, whatever you call that. You'd have to have multiple logins for these things. They'd have completely different and overlapping achievement systems that they have and storefronts. And then, of course, the compatibility thing is there's no guarantees all of these games would work. Of course, with Steam Deck, they have to have Steam approved or Steam verified. It is, I think it's called, in order to go on Steam Deck. Not all of them they work, but some of them don't work well unless they're verified, in which case they've been kind of optimized for Steam Deck. And that list does grow, but that's another issue. Like the stuff, it's not that easy to get that storefront verified, and because Microsoft also would have no control over what's on Steam or Epic, etc., in terms of content, then content moderation would have to be downplayed by Xbox. Because if you have a look at half the stuff that's on Steam, most of it wouldn't get onto Xbox.
Yep.
In its format. So there's a lot of hurdles. There's a lot. It's great in practice. It's great in thought, but there's a lot of hurdles to overcome to make that a reality.
Yeah, I do agree. I mean, in general, the idea is great for consumers. At least for the most part. There's one thing, I will get to that in a second, that I thought of, but for the most part, it's a great thing. Yeah, have access on your console, especially in combination, of course, with a native handheld, to all your libraries. Yeah, and let's be real, a lot of people have multiple libraries now. Yeah, I have my library on Xbox. I have the library on PlayStation, on Nintendo, on Steam. Hell, I even have a couple of games on Epic, although I never use it. But
and Amazon Marketplace, they do games every now and again.
Yeah, so yeah, you have multiple libraries, and unifying that on one device would absolutely be cool, no doubt. But there's, of course, like you said, multiple layers to this that where I lack right now a little bit of fantasy. But hey, if Phil talks about this in such an interview, I think they are actively working on this to make this a reality. Now, whether that's actually going to be Steam or whether it's really just like stores like Epic and itch.io is another question. But let's break it down. There's the technical level. First and foremost, you have to make the games run on the console. And the Steam games or Epic games are really not optimized for console. So how would you make them run there? Yeah. Will you leave like all the settings and people have to try to figure out, okay, what's the best setting to make that run on a console or not? How would it actually work? Because they are all Windows based and not Xbox OS based games. So how would that work on a technical level? Then there's, of course, the business side of things. These games that are released in Steam or in Epic or on itch.io, they have licenses for Windows. And if a publisher releases their game on Xbox OS, they have the license for that. And I think it's fair to say it is a big question. Which games would actually be allowed to be on Xbox after being published on Steam or Epic? You know? Because publishers want us to double dip. It is a legal thing. So with the licenses and everything, you have to sort that stuff out. And then, of course, the question is, what would be your business model on console? Let's be real here. If you could play all your Steam games on Xbox, why would you buy the next Assassin's Creed on Xbox and not on Steam? It usually is $10 cheaper on Steam. It would automatically mean you can play your games on PC, on the Steam Deck, and on Xbox console. But where would Microsoft or Xbox make their money from? Yeah, and of course that means, would they be able to subsidize the hardware in the same way that they do right now? And this is the one thing where I say, okay, is this, it could be it's a potential downside of this, because what would be the business model for Xbox? How would they make more money off of this by offering the games from Steam on Xbox? These are all questions you have to figure out. Now, that's why I said maybe that's something that they wouldn't do with Steam, but with Epic, because Epic is also super struggling with the Epic Games Store. They haven't made any money off of this. To me, actually, it is surprising that they are still existing, because they have been losing money with the Epic Games Store ever since its release. Now, bringing such store over to console would obviously mean, hey, Epic could get a big boost out of this, and therefore maybe that's a business model for them. You would still have to figure out the license thing, and you would still have to figure out the technical thing, but Epic would actually have an incentive to do that. What would be the incentive for Steam? Steam, it's different, because, like you said, there's tons of shit on there, and that's another thing you have to figure out. Consoles are as convenient as they are because they are controlled systems. Everything that is released on Xbox, on PlayStation, has to go through certification. Yeah, it has to fulfill certain minimum standards. You don't have that stuff on Steam. So, yeah, you would deal with all the things, not just bad running games, but also with cheating, with hacking and everything, and hacks and everything that you simply have on the PC platform that you don't have to the same degree on the console. So how would that work? As much as I like the idea, I'm not sure how this would work in total. But then why would Phil mention it in such a way if this isn't a real possibility? So do you think it's gonna happen, or what is to this?
No, it's wishful thinking. I think it's more something that Phil would love to happen. Like all of us, we would love to have a singular portable system where you can access everything and retain all of your games. So we'd love to have the native experience where you can play your Xbox games on a handheld that you have purchased on a console, and have access to all your Steam games, and have access to all, like, it's the ideal situation to access everything in one place for a normal person. But when realistically, it's just not straight. It's not simple. There's so many red lines that they have to get through, and so many kind of issues that they have to go through in order to make it happen. It's not really a realistic dream to have. Far too much red tape.
Yeah. So I agree. I'm sure. Otherwise, Phil wouldn't have mentioned it, that they are in talks with Epic and itch and obviously Steam. If it will happen anytime soon, I would also say I'm not sure. I don't think so, because there are so many hurdles you have to take, from legal licenses to technical things to opening up your console ecosystem to things you don't want to have on a console, to figuring out what would be the business model on Xbox, on the console. There's a lot of things they would have to figure out, and I'm not sure. But maybe somewhen in the future, man. Maybe somewhen in the future. Phil Spencer also talked a lot about in his interview. Changing the subject, by the way, because I don't have a good segue into the next topic. Phil also talked about the general growth of the industry, and that the mass layoffs that we have seen in the Xbox division was also mainly due to that reason. You remember they recently laid off 8% of the employees, mainly the ABK staff was affected. And yeah, he says also that the growth limitations of the industry is basically pivoted towards the Gen Z habits, with younger players mainly playing on tablets and such things, and basically them wanting to play their content, their games wherever they want on whatever device they want, and that there is just in general no real growth in the industry. And he thinks about how can we start to grow the entire industry again. What do you think of this man?
I mean, there is a case for it, because of course we like to remember the world on what we've grown up with and how everything's evolved with us. But if you go back to, if our parents, for instance,
Yeah.
were coming in at where they started gaming compared to where it is now, and they've moved on and they've done what they need to do, and a lot of them still game, but ultimately things are a significant difference compared to playing on essentially a gaming console that was a cassette player, where you had to rewind the cassette in order to play the game. Um, to now, where it's all digital storefronts and in-store things on machines and things. It's a vastly different thing, and the habits of gamers have changed significantly since then. Um, Now, like you say, you never used to have mobile gaming then. If you did have some form of mobile gaming, it was on an actual pocket device. And even then, it was maybe limited to the likes of Tetris or Pong or Space Invaders or something in your pocket, and it was just a singular game, and you used to buy these little games, um, and that was it. And then they changed to the Game Boy, and then the younger generation got Game Boys, whilst the older generation was still either maybe on console or on PC. And that's just how things are. So as much as we don't want to hear it, we are the older generation when it comes to gaming now. So technology advances, and they try to match the demand of the generation that's ultimately going to make them money again, um, going forward. And they're the ones that they're kind of aiming for. And the habits of those are significantly different to the habits of us. So whilst we might not have, again, you have to look at it from an older perspective, but our habits are different because we've got responsibilities, significantly more responsibilities than those of younger
Yeah.
generations. We've got families and kids and jobs to contend with on top of all those three things, as well as potentially trying to balance your normal life in there. Younger generations, a lot of the younger generations don't have families, they don't have kids, they're just by themselves, or maybe he's got a partner or something like that. That's a bit different. And then the younger generation again, they've got different habits all over again. They're all mobile, playing on tablets or phones and things like that, things that didn't exist when we were younger, and is now very prevalent. Um, so yeah, things do move, and naturally, as a technology company, they have to stay relevant to all generations. So while we will get things that are aimed at us, like high spec, high and expensive consoles, or things on gaming PCs, or talking about technological advances like ray tracing and things like that, that's what matters to geeks like the old timer geeks like us, who like to see these technological advances. The younger generation don't care. They just want to play wherever they want to play, on a tablet or a phone or a console. Ultimately, where is the most popular to play it, and what is the most popular thing to play it on? Uh, that's what the younger generation wants. So it is true in essence. We have to move with the times, as much as we don't want to. But the companies do as well, because ultimately that's a fresh batch of people that are getting consoles for the first time, or coming into gaming for the first time, or trying to target those that might be kind of part-time gamers and get them to game a little bit more. But even when you're talking about the handheld systems and things like that, those also positively affect people like us with families and little time to game, because you don't have all the time in the world to sit in front of a TV and play games all the time and things like that. And you might get the occasional hour or so, and it's going to be a lot easier to just pick up a handheld and play on that for a couple of hours than it is to go and sit down and turn on the TV and then look through your library for ages and decide on what you want to play, and then maybe you get an hour, and by that point you've got to put kids to bed, you've got to make the food, you've got to do so on and so forth. So yeah, the gaming habits of the general demographic have changed over the years, and it will continue to change. And of course, they've just got to stay relevant within that. At the moment, the demographic though is pointing, and I think that's where they're looking at it as well. The demographic of those who play the games currently is actually significantly older than what it was historically. So the demographic for gamers is actually, on average, higher on an age bracket than it was before. So they're actually losing out on that lower end bracket than they did in previous generations. Previous generations, it was the lowest end of the scale that was playing the games. They're the ones that were significantly picking up consoles all the time or getting them for the birthdays, and they were the ones gaming a lot. But now it's more the older generation that are doing it because it's a vice. It's something to get away from daily habits and work and the grind as it is. It's an escape as opposed to just a hobby that used to be for the younger generations. Now it's firmly, on average, played by the elder generation. So where console manufacturers are losing out on their money would be more the kids now, because the kids are gaming more on mobile and tablets than they ever have.
Yeah, while that is true, I still don't think that the growth of the industry is or the lack of growth of the industry is to blame on the gaming habits of Gen Z, because while mobile gaming,
no, I think the lack of
tablet
growth in the
gaming
industry is the habits of.
Yeah, so these
I
kind
think
of
it's a lack of growth specifically when it comes to our generation. It's what I think it must be a marginal delay here.
Yeah,
it
seems
the habits
like
of what we do these days compared to the habits of the Gen Z, and that's the issue. I think it's the issue is our gaming habits now, and the growth that we represent now isn't as substantial as it once was. They've essentially and what we do and how we play games and the way we purchase games is significantly different than what we have before. And I think the way people buy games these days is also part of that issue, because we'll either wait for a sale or we'll wait for it second hand, or we'll buy it on something if it's cheaper, or we'll wait until somebody else has told us multiple reviews whereas the way it was before wasn't like that. It was arched differently. The most we'd see a review was in a magazine. You'd see a few screenshots and you'd go, "That's the one I want to get," and you'd buy the game.
Yeah,
or
but the
your
gaming
friends would all be
market
playing it and you'd buy the game.
Yeah, but the gaming market overall was significantly smaller at that time. The way I look at this is the industry, or the gaming the people's the gaming demographics has gotten older. Like, we are still gamers. Like 30 years ago, there were probably barely any gamers that were 40 plus years old, and that definitely has changed. And of course, you have to ask the question, what's the new generation doing and how are they playing? And yes, tablets and phones and so on, definitely one way to where they play games now. But then I look at my kids, and even one of my sons is in second class right now, second grade right now, and he's even those kids are still playing on console. Granted, that's mostly Nintendo at the moment, but there's demand for console gaming there too. And my kids prefer to play on a console rather than on a tablet. And also, granted, our household is probably not representative of the standard household these days, because their daddy has everything. They can play on Xbox, they can play on PlayStation, they have access to a Nintendo and to a PC if they want to. It's definitely not the standard, but also all the kids at school, they love to play on consoles. So I don't think that this is the way how what really limits the growth right now. I think that what limits the growth of the industry is probably more the way we play games, because whenever you've seen like a disruptive moment in the gaming space, like the Wii. Take the Wii as an example. Suddenly, the elderly have started to play games because they love to play those. There was something new about it, you know? And we haven't seen that. We haven't seen these kind of innovations in recent years. Then also what we have to consider, and I know that this is how business work. You usually look at the last year and the year before that and the year before that. How do we doing in terms of growth? We come off of the pandemic that started 4 years ago, where you have suddenly seen a significant growth, and now of course the growth starts to slow down again, because it's now in back to normal way how the industry grows. And guess what? The 20-year-old gamer of from today will be having a lot of more disposable money in 10 years, and there is growth to be made with this kind of generation. And the question obviously is simply, how do you do that? And I think one thing where I do agree with Phil is having access across multiple devices, because I think gaming is still the only form of entertainment that is limited to certain devices. If you think about movies, if you think about music, if you think about books, everything else is device agnostic. Exactly, yeah. And gaming isn't that. But then, of course, gaming is also simply a different thing, because you don't have to optimize music or movies, you know, to be able to be watched on a phone and a big TV and the cinema. You know, you don't have to do that, but you kind of have to do that with games. You have to optimize them for certain hardware. So yeah, it's a little different.
We've also seen it change though with the types of games the demographics are playing now. And you have to look at the most popular and most successful games on the market. And we've already seen this shift, because a lot of them have tried to get into it. The shift to the Fortnites and the Robloxes and all of that thing. That's the most popular. That's especially for that demographic. And that's where we've seen a shift from a lot of these manufacturers on how do we do a popular games as a service game in order to appeal to that demographic.
Yeah.
And that's the shift we've already seen and we continue to see. And then the issue is then they're looking at technologically going forwards, how do we appeal to the demographic that does the Fortnites and the Robloxes, and what are their gaming habits?
Yeah, of course. But then again, it all comes down to disposable income. If I think back at my time when I was at school, and those were the days of the Super Nintendo, you know, and
the Mega Drive.
And the Mega Drive, and like I didn't have any money to buy a game. So what was the case? You got like 1 or 2 games for your birthday and 1 or 2 games for Christmas, and that's about it. And then you started trading those on the schoolyard, you know. And today with games like Fortnite or Roblox, the thing is they are free. You know, you can actually play them. My kids are super into Minecraft these days, of course. Yeah, and they are. It's a super cheap game. You buy that once, and you can play that for years. And but those demographics, they will earn a lot more money in a couple of years and have that disposable income, and then you can grow them into becoming PC gamers or into becoming console gamers. So I think what we see right now is just like a little bit an overshoot of an effect that happened with COVID, where you had 2 years where gaming was like growing in a way it hasn't grown in a long time, and now we're simply back to standard growth. But now you look at the likes of Microsoft and other publishers that talked about this as well. Yeah, they look at the sales from last year and 2 years ago, and then you suddenly realize, oh, we are not growing as fast anymore. And that's the thing, and that leans into the next topic that Phil Spencer discussed about the development costs of games that have gone up, and that the math is simply different now. And we've heard like Spider-Man cost $200 million to make, and that is true for a lot of these AAA games. And so you really want to be able to scale across multiple devices, because that is the nice thing about software. It can scale. You have to build it once. You don't have production cost afterwards, basically, like you do with hardware that you sell. Yeah, you simply scale, and the more devices that have potentially access to it, it's beneficial. And with these high development costs, the math has changed. So yeah, I do understand that Xbox has this issue about not seeing growth anymore, or not to the degree that they probably want to. But then, and I don't want to be too overly negative on this, but then I think about, okay, what makes you grow your ecosystem? And at the very end of the day, it's the games. And as exciting as the future roadmap for Microsoft looks, and I said it earlier, in 6 weeks we get Hellblade 2, and then we play Avowed, and then we will play Indiana Jones, and all these other great games, Towerborn and Stalker this year. So far into this generation, Xbox hasn't released that much. You know, it was like the first year of the console, they didn't have any games. Then they released Forza Horizon and Halo in terms of bigger releases, yeah, that might actually shift consoles, yeah. Then they had, again, 1.5 years of nothing. And last year they released Starfield and then another Forza, you know. And is this really what is this enough to like grow your ecosystem? If you have consistent games, and we know that we are now at the start of this phase where Xbox actually has continued a continued cadence and regular cadence of quality games coming. That's the baseline for growing your ecosystem. And to blame it basically on the Gen Z habits, I don't know if this is the right thing. And it actually stuck with me a little bit, because I've had a couple of discussions in the DMs with different people. I don't know how you see this, but so far Xbox has not delivered the things that you need to actually grow in a meaningful way, let alone the marketing issue, which we've talked about multiple times. Like every other week we say, okay, if you don't market your stuff, you can have the best product in the world. If nobody knows that it exists, it's not gonna sell well. And if I look at that is the way more obvious thing why Xbox hasn't been growing in the way that they wanted to grow or need to grow, than the Gen Z habits or an overall lack in the industry. Because again, yes, I know development costs are up, but if you release quality products, they still sell like crazy. If you look at the numbers that Elden Ring and Harry Potter, not Harry Potter, Hogwarts Legacy and all those games, or Baldur's Gate and so on, sold. Yeah, there is a huge market for quality games. And yeah, if you fix those problems, I don't see a reason why you wouldn't grow. Yeah, and if you think about the handheld thing and offer something unique that your competitor doesn't have, offer something to differentiate yourself, then why wouldn't you grow? Especially since you have a great product. Yeah, they have the best service out there with Game Pass and the unified ecosystem across PC and console. At least to a certain degree, taking third-party games out of it. But yeah, they already have all those things: great backwards compatibility, great hardware. But yeah, at the end of the day, you can have all those things. If the content isn't there and if marketing isn't there, why would you grow? It's the way more obvious thing than blaming it on Gen Z habits or general industry problem. I don't know how you see it. There's something wrong on your end, it seems. You're bodying hard, bro.
They're getting older time.
Sorry, you have to repeat that.
Weird. I've got no idea. There's literally nothing running apart from.
You are bodying.
Nothing running apart from OBS and this. So.
Okay.
No idea.
It's a little better now. So sorry. Could you repeat what you just said?
I'm just going to transfer. Yeah, I'm just going to turn off gameplay for the remainder because I don't think it's too much longer to go after this.
Yeah.
The buying habits of younger generations are absolutely something that they have to take into account when looking at growth for the future, because ultimately we're not going to be here all the time. We're not going to be here forever, and as the generations progress, they do need to move on with it. That being said, it is an industry-wide problem, and each one of them have to solve this problem in different ways. So Xbox have the issue where they lost, as we've mentioned, they lost the biggest generation they could lose, which was the PS4, Xbox One generation. And because of losing that, they lost significant ground over the competitor when it comes to actual in-house adoption. Now, you went from having, what was it, 80, 90 million consoles with the 360 to having 40 million, 50 million consoles with the Xbox One. And the PlayStation severely took off after that and ended up with like 120 million on PS3, or 130 million on PS3 or something ridiculous. And 125, 130 million on PS4. And now on track so far to kind of match that, if not slightly better at come end of generation, though it could slow down, and they have actually reduced their forecast for the coming year. But ultimately, the issues are numerous mitigating factors. PlayStation have also said, like, we've got 120 million plus consoles. We're only doing 20 million, 30 million sales max on first party if we're lucky. So we have to look at other areas of growth because it's just not enough to spend this much on our big first party titles and only get 10 to 20 million, 30 million at most sales out of one, when we have 120 plus million customers and we're only doing 20, 30 million sales at most. And in some cases, 10 million or less when they're putting out these big first party titles. So they're also looking at other areas of growth and how can we grow? How can we tap the market? So they've started emphasizing PC much more aggressively now, and I think we'll see them grow more there. But they ultimately will also be looking at other areas of where can we grow and how can we actually make this a bit more sustainable. And ultimately, I think it's just the way, the wording in which Phil Spencer has said Gen Z, people have just assumed, I think, that they're just going to target that as their prerogative going forwards, of why Gen Z's buying habits are severely different to our generation. So we're going to kind of focus on that. And I don't think that's ultimately what they will do, because the biggest spenders will still be our generation. The people that are more likely to buy hardware and games en masse will be our generation, because we've got far more expendable income than the younger generation do. Um, of course, with um, the odd outliers who are younger and have a lot of expendable income, but there are few and far between. Few and
Yeah.
far between. So ultimately, they have to play the balancing game. Yes, they have to think of the future and evolve with the gen, and evolve as ages stop playing games and start playing games and so on and so forth. So they need to start targeting those younger generations more. But they also have to, of course, entice the people who are still probably spending en masse more than the younger generation.
Yeah.
So it's a balancing act, and but all manufacturers have to, apart from Nintendo, all have to have to think about the
Yeah.
buying habit, um, and how to achieve those. And as I mentioned, Xbox have got a problem. Their problem was they lost the biggest generation they could lose, and ultimately they understand now that it's going to be severely difficult to win over those who are ingrained in the PlayStation ecosystem. Like the likelihood of winning somebody over as a primary console user is very limited. You have to now try to fight for them to be a potential secondary, and then you've got to justify why somebody would need a secondary platform. Um, I don't think they help themselves importing their games elsewhere,
Yeah.
because it then takes away the justification of why do I then need to invest in this ecosystem. Um, so they're kind of giving themselves shooting themselves in the foot in certain angles, but it's a difficult one. But they have to. It's a balancing act going forward. They need to entice the Gen Zs, but they need to continue to entice our generation in order for us to continue spending like we do now.
Yeah, and I think with that, the sentiment right now, for a lot of people is they are not sure where Xbox is going, and will there still be like the Xbox you kind of know in a few years. Not saying obviously they're going to make a new console. They already confirmed that. That's not what I'm saying. But when you look at the community right now, a lot of people don't really know what is the future of Xbox. What is it? What are they? What is their master plan? Um, and yeah, this is what I noticed, because through all the bad times that Xbox had, they are now at the start of that place where we wanted Xbox to be for many, many, many years now. Yeah,
Yeah,
great games are about to release. You get great value for Game Pass subscription. You have a unified ecosystem across PC and console, at least for the stuff that is in Game Pass. And um, Xbox is actually, if you think about it this way, yeah, in a very good place now. Yeah, lots of great games coming this year, next year, the year after, all good. And still, something weird is happening in the community, and maybe we use that as a closing topic for this whole what's the future of Xbox thing. Um, Xbox, through all the difficult times, what they've always managed is to keep like a great community, a positive community that is excited about the brand, that is uh, willing to trust them, that things will get better, and everything. And for some reason, and maybe that's just me, but it doesn't feel like that anymore. It feels like, yes, there are the hyperbolts, the complete flip floppers that went from, oh, I'm a massive Xbox fan, to, oh, all doom and gloom. But there's a more nuanced thing going on. Yeah, if you think about it, the potential of us getting an Xbox handheld is exciting. The potential of getting Epic games or Steam on console is actually exciting. It's exciting that we get Hellblade in a couple of weeks, and that we play Avowed this year, and Indiana Jones and Stalker, and this is all exciting. And yet, even though all this positive stuff is out there and is really like only a few weeks away, somehow I feel a weird, slightly negative, vibe out of the community. And why is that?
I think people, you know what it is? I think at times we forget why we love the hobby in the first place, and we don't focus on the games that are out there and play the games.
Yeah.
A lot of us spend a lot of time, and half of it is a lot of time we don't get enough time to game these days. So when we do, it's just we just see all this negative news, and that's all we focus on, as opposed to like switch off Twitter, switch off social media, sit down and enjoy playing games. It doesn't have to be the newest game. Just get back to enjoying games again, which is part of the issue. It can be. I've enjoyed recently diving into some older games just because I've been in the mood to play an older game as opposed to a brand new one. Like I haven't really been as much as I've been wanting to get onto Rebirth. I haven't really been in the mood to play Final Fantasy recently. Um, when I'm busy, and it's one of them games that when I do want to play it, I want to play it for a substantial amount of time in order to get quite a bit done out of it, because I don't know when the next time is that I'm going to get to have enough time to play it. So I like to kind of just jump onto things and enjoy it, and just I think just a lot of people like to nitpick and kind of get a bit maybe a little overly negative about some of the situations and not look at some of the positive things and the positive steps that are happening in gaming. And the technological advances that allow us to do more going forward that are exciting, or the new hardware that we're potentially going to get that is exciting, and the new games we're going to get that's exciting. Like, think of all the good things that are coming out of it. As much as there are negatives, there's a lot of positives as well to come out of it. There's a lot of silly things like this whole Sweet Baby Ink thing that people keep moaning about at the moment, and people just thrive off negativity at times that really overshadows what this medium's about, which is just enjoying games.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Then again, gaming, don't get me wrong, of course we all play or are in gaming because of playing great games, but then gaming is also about community, about discussing what you love, about playing games together with other people. It's about community as well. That's why we do this podcast, because we love our community. We love to engage in the discussion around gaming, love to talk about the hobby and the excitement and everything. And it goes hand in hand, and it is just interesting to see how. And I've been doing this for a long time. I've been part of this community for many years now, and there have always been positive phases and a little bit more negative phases and ups and downs. And I just feel this time it just feels different to me, because I see a lot of people like really not knowing what to make out of all of this. I think
Yeah.
this is something um, this is something where Xbox really should pay attention to, because the community aspect has always been like the thing about the Xbox brand. They have been very community focused. They do a lot of community events. They engage on socials with the community and so on. And if you want to talk about growth, take your community with it. Don't leave it behind. And if this is the one thing that I noticed, is just it feels different about all this doom and glooming, and we've had that for
I think what we've
decades
seen
now.
most recently, Boxy, I think what we've seen most recently is because of this whole port game situation, the communities, like, I think a lot of the Xbox guys have took a little bit of a step back, um, especially over recent weeks. They took a little bit of a step back from integrating themselves
Yeah.
in the community as much because of everybody kicking off like little babies about games porting to different platforms and things like that.
Yeah.
And they're all just getting like it's. I can understand from their perspective as well. Then they start to get like personally attacked, and it's games. So they do have a community. They've been very hands on with their community for years. But they've taken a little bit of a step back recently because of a lot of the way that the community's reacted to news based around essentially porting games to other platforms.
Yeah, agree. So let's hope that that Xbox can get back that excitement. I mean, June is around the corner. New games will be shown. New hardware to some degree, probably not like we talked earlier, probably not the next gen or a mid-gen refresh, but an Xbox Slim, a new controller, stuff like that. And maybe that's what they need now, just to get back into the exciting part, because again, there is so much to be excited about. We get great games, still get great value out of all the services and so on. So yeah, we shall see how this will continue. But Dutch, we are we are way more than 2 hours now into the show. And let's move on from Xbox and the Xbox topics, and let's talk about a couple of small things before we come to the community questions. I want to talk to you about Borderlands, because Take-Two is going to acquire Gearbox from Embracer for $460 million. And they also confirmed, 2K has confirmed that next Borderlands game is in active development. So what do you think about Embracer selling off Gearbox and, of course, new Borderlands in the making?
Yeah, I mean, you know what it is? I've got Borderlands 3, and for some reason, I didn't really get into it.
Really?
I don't know what it was, I don't know what it was, but I just didn't get into it as much as I did. But I loved Borderlands 2. I played that game to death. But for some reason, and I think it was mainly just down to the co-op factor, I used to play Borderlands 2 co-op all the time.
Yeah.
But Borderlands 3, no one really picked it up. No one was really playing it. So I ended up just playing it by myself, and it didn't have the same feeling to it. It's a good game. No doubt I would absolutely enjoy it, but it was definitely a game that I more enjoyed playing co-op with my friends than I did playing solo. And I think that was part of the issue. So I would love to see what they can do with a new Borderlands, but ultimately I would have to be, I'm just wary, okay, so how many people are actually picking this game up? And because if we're getting older and having far less time to game these days, as we'd love to, what's the chance of us being able to hook up with friends and play these games?
So I really enjoyed Borderlands 3. Didn't get too much into the end game, but then I like to play multiple games, and for me, an end game, I always say if I get a good campaign out of it and get my money's worth there, I'm fine with it. And that was the case for Borderlands 3, because it was a great campaign, was fun, and so on. The good news about this is actually that Gearbox is no longer part of Embracer, because Embracer, let's be real here, for a long time we all thought, oh, they have this great master plan and they want to become like the next EA or something. But
obviously, it's a bit off more than they could chew when it comes to development costs.
Yeah, absolutely. And they, for a long time, they bought a lot of developers, but they were all smaller developers that had smaller projects that are easier to fund. And all of a sudden, they bought like these big studios with big IPs, Crystal and so on, Crystal Dynamics with Tomb Raider and so on. And all of a sudden, it all fell apart. They are not up for like funding these major games, and so at this point, I'm almost just happy that the studio isn't just getting shut down, but finds a new home that can
Yeah.
actually support them and help develop a great game, because with Embracer that's just a mess these days. And so I'm glad that Gearbox is now part of Take-Two, which already made sense because of the um, the already existing relationships. They have published their games, um, it makes sense, and I'm looking forward to getting a proper new Borderlands. And can't wait. And by the way, Tiny Tina's Wonderland was also a fantastic Borderlands-esque game, So yeah, I'm really looking forward to see what the outcome of this will be. What else happened in gaming this week? We got more or less confirmation that Toys for Bob, who recently went independent from Microsoft, now have agreed to partner with Microsoft. And of course, everyone thinks and speculates that it's going to be the next Spyro. What do you think? Where's this partnership going?
Yeah, next Spyro or Crash. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've said that they did an absolutely amazing job on Crash Trilogy and Spyro Trilogy and Crash Team Racing. Like, they were perfect remakes of those games. Nothing changed. It was just revolutionized for modern gaming, and they were brilliant. They looked great. They played great. Fantastic. That's exactly how you meant to do a remake. So to see them working on a new one, obviously they had Crash 4, which was fantastic. And then to see them working on a brand new Crash or Spyro, and I think Spyro needs it more than Crash, because Spyro just had its trilogy. It didn't have any new games after that, whereas, of course, we've had Crash 4, which was a new Crash Bandicoot. We haven't had a new Spyro in that vein, so I'd love to see Spyro make a return.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. But
Absolutely.
yeah, they're a fantastic studio, and I think that should be their cadence. You never know; they might partner on a new Banjo with them in the future. Just never know.
You never know. Indeed. All right, Dutch. Let's get to the community questions. We had a couple of community questions this week regarding all the Xbox stuff. What do we think about the handheld? We got that question multiple times. We talked about it. We also got a lot of questions about the Gen Z stuff. We talked already about that. So apologies to those who sent in the questions. We've discussed this intensively over the show, but we also got a couple of good ones here from Sithlord. One, he writes in, next week I will be starting Diablo 4 with a friend. Any starting tips you can give us?
Oh, not really. Just enjoy the campaign.
Yeah. See, I can give a couple of beginners tips. I actually posted also a couple on Twitter, and a lot of people were bookmarking that. So Diablo.
Don't worry about your armor so much during the campaign. The armor stuff wait until end game. Just as long as you're frequently upgrading to more powerful gear as you go.
Yeah,
because you will need it.
Salvage everything you find and don't need. Don't think about upgrading your stuff during the campaign. In the early levels.
Not too much. You need it a little bit in order to beat bosses and things, but just slap on anything. Don't worry about how you look and things. That can wait till afterwards. But primarily just upgrading in order to get to the next person, beat the next big boss and things like that. That's the basics of what you need to worry about. Outside of that, you don't need to worry about the aesthetics.
No, about aesthetics, definitely not. But if you do so, you can already do that during the campaign with the transmog system, which is fantastic. Yeah. So
but just wear the most powerful gear that you find every time. So if you pick up another bit of gear that's more powerful, put it on.
Put it on, and if you go to the smith, I still wouldn't recommend to upgrade weapons during the campaign. Salvage everything and save the materials, because you're gonna do a lot of upgrading more towards the end game or higher level when you reach a higher level. What I also would recommend is try to look for the altars of Lilith. Not only are they giving a great boost in your stats, but it will carry over to every character you do. So you don't have, with every character, have to look for the altars again. Once you have unlocked the altar, the boost you get will automatically be carried over to every other character you might do in a season or in the end game or whatever. So that's definitely, and the same goes for renown. You don't have to do the full renown in every area, but do the first 3 tiers, because that will give you a additional skill point that will also carry over to every character you do. So definitely do that. And then I would also say during the campaign, a lot of people, I remember that especially for people that are new to Diablo games, the gems you find, they seem pretty useless at the beginning of the game. You find a lot of gems and you don't know what to do with them, and even if you put them in your loot, in your armor or helmet or whatnot, it might not sound like it's a great boost, but they are. And you will see that a little later in the game. So get all the gems you need and think about it. And then also, if you try to figure out, you can always look up builds, but that would rob you of what makes actually a big part of a Diablo game, trying to figure out the right skill build for you. And it really doesn't matter which class you are playing, whether you play as a sorcerer or necromancer or whatnot. Don't try to build a character that is an all-round talent. That never helps you. The best builds are always built in a way that boosts one certain characteristic. For instance, if you're playing as a sorcerer, focus on lightning damage or fire damage or ice damage, but not all 3. And build your skill set around that, boosting everything, like do extra damage for lighting and increase chances for critical hit with lighting, and then like do that. Or if you're playing as a barbarian, for instance, focus on thorn damage, and then put the focus on that, and not try to build like an all-round, but play around with different skill builds, because that's not only one of the most fun parts of the game, but the game really allows you to reset all your stats, more or less for free all the time, especially in the early section of the game. It'll get a little more costly later on, but definitely try to reset your skill tree, try out different builds, see what works for you. That would be a tip from my side. So what else do we have here? Community questions. There we are. Actually lost my... So we have our friend from Germany. It's actually a German question. Gurkenfan, which is Cucumber Fan, writes in and asks this. We've heard, I have to translate now into English. We've heard about the new Xbox controller and what it might be able to do. What are you actually hoping for in the next Xbox controller?
For me, it's more just quality of life as opposed to anything else. I want them to implement Hall effect sticks so we no longer get stick drift issues. The bumpers and triggers need fixed. The bumpers have the main issue right bumper is a fail on many of the Elite controllers, as well as the regular controllers, and that it fails quite often. So you need to fix mainly the bumpers, the Hall effect sticks, and then look at then look at haptics. That would be the only real changes. Alongside that, other quality of life, have the rubber grips as standard. You get them in some of the special edition controllers, like the Starfield one, for instance, and the Forza one. And you can get them on Design Labs, but just have the rubber grips on the back end as standard. I think that would be a good option. And then, like I say, Hall effect sticks, better bumpers that last much longer or last full stop, and haptics. They're the three key things I want to see.
Yeah. To me, see, I really like my Elite controller, but the Elite still doesn't have like the layout from the Series X controller with the capture button on it. So I want a mixture of that, the Elite controller and the capture button thing. And I can fully get behind what you said about the Hall sensor sticks, because stick drifting is just super annoying. But overall, I don't have that many requests about the controller, because the controller to me actually is pretty awesome as it is. Yeah.
It's a great controller. It just needs some quality of life upgrades.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, there's always the question about the rumble features or the haptic features from like the PS5 controller, and I do enjoy those. I think they are great, not for every game, especially when you're playing competitive, but for single player games and so on, that's a really good and cool feature. Of course, if Xbox can implement those in a controller, I would be up for it. Holm 1911 writes in and asks, do you think we will see another Xbox Developer Direct this year?
As much as I want to, I'm not sure we will.
I mean, the next showcase is obviously the big one in June.
Yeah. And then Gamescom. And then
but they usually don't do something like in terms of showcases at Gamescom.
No. They do shows, and they do announce little bits there, but we don't really pay attention because we're actually physically there.
Yeah.
But they do announce little bits, more like indie games and things like that, and they do little things on that, but it's not big.
I mean, technically last year they did another Developer Direct after the Xbox showcase in June for Starfield. Which is...
You might see one for the likes of Indiana Jones.
It's exactly my thought. If I think about their lineup this fall, with Stalker 2 in September, Avowed somewhen, and Indiana Jones somewhen, and Towerborn also somewhen, it kind of would make sense to do another proper Developer Direct, because I still don't consider the Starfield thing like a real Developer Direct, because it was one game for 45 minutes. I loved it, don't get me wrong. I truly did enjoy it, but it was like the extended showcase. But yeah, I could see them do that this fall, simply to make sure everyone knows, hey, we got games now, and we have enough to talk about those games. And so I could see them do one somewhere in August or September. Would be actually cool to get a proper Developer Direct from Gamescom. Why not? Why not do that? Yeah. So yeah, we shall see. Yeah, Dutch. But that brings us to the end of this show.
Yes.
I want to say a big thank you to everyone who joined us here today on the unusual occasion of a Sunday podcast. We still got a lot of people here watching and listening to us. So shout out to you guys and thank you for tuning in. And of course, big thank you to everyone who listens after the fact, either here on YouTube or on Spotify, on Google Podcast, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening. We hope you did enjoy the show. Next week, we will be back at the regular Thursday time slot. But yeah, Dutch, let everyone know what you've been working on for a while now.
Yeah, continue to work on. So obviously, as mentioned at the beginning of the show, for those who missed that, we've got the Community Indie Showcase, of course, on the 27th of April. So that's 7 p.m. UK, 2 p.m. Eastern. Over 60 games, special guests, giveaways, developer interviews that are shown post-show, content creators involved again this year, as always, and we've got a nice graphical upgrade as well, so it'll look even fancier than it has before. So, that's what I'm working on this month. Game streams have been a little bit limited because I've just been tired with work and doing the work on the showcase and things. So, might do the odd gameplay stream every now and again, but ultimately, focus this month is on the Community Indie Showcase.
Sweet.
So that's what I'm focusing on.
Sweet. All right. So yeah, again, we will be back next week, next Thursday, with a regular World of Gaming podcast, and now we all enjoy the long Easter weekend, or at least most of us do. Diehard79 in the chat says, hit the like button on the way out. Yeah, we would definitely appreciate that. Thank you. And again, thanks to everyone here today in the chat and every listener. You guys enjoy your games, because that's what matters most with all the controversy right now out there. It's a great time to be a gamer because there are so many great games to play out there. Dragon's Dogma is out. Diablo just hit Game Pass. People have been enjoying the Stellar Blade demo, so that's probably also something to look forward to. Rise of Ronin is out. There's just so much to play. Great games everywhere, and you just go out, enjoy that. And we hope to see you back next Thursday. So don't forget to game on.